Greetings for the day, student. I'll be handling the subject research methodology, and the subject code stands as 20 MBA 23. Okay, so in this video, I will be briefing you about the first week's portions. Okay, so anyways, we'll be starting with the unit 1, the module 1, the basics of the subject. Then, as and when we move on in further videos, I'll be briefing you about other topics. Myself, Professor Dr. Mamtaji, Professor and HOD of Department of MBA, will be handing you the subject research methodology. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to just brief you about this week's first week's content. Okay. So the first unit name says business research. Okay. The subject name is research methodology, but the first unit title is business research. Okay. So as you all know, in any of the syllabus, the first unit stands for the introduction of the subject. Similarly, in this subject also, the first unit is business research. Okay. I'll just tell you about the contents to be covered this week. Okay, so this week we're going to discuss what is business research, the meaning or the definition of research. Then we are going to discuss what are the objectives of research. For anything for that matter, you have certain purpose or objectives of doing it. So similarly, for doing a research, you have certain objectives. So based on that, we are going to discuss what are the objectives of conducting a business research. And then similarly, we are going to discuss what are the requirements or the necessity for conducting the research. And there are various types of research. When you conduct a research, it is not only one type or two types. Okay, there are various types of research. So you need to know the difference between these types of research. Okay, so when you take up research, it depends on your situation, on your topic of interest, or your specific domain. So we have to discuss what are the different types of research. Okay. So further moving on to just to start with the initial thing, I am just going to give you a start with the quote. Okay. So this slide says, responsibility for learning belongs to the student regardless of age. So learning, it doesn't depend on any of the age. Okay. So learning is a lifelong process. Keep on learning, keep on learning. Okay. This is a quote given by Robert Martin. Okay. So students have that responsibility of learning whatever might be the platform, either offline or online. Learning is important. Okay. So just to start with, just to explain you like how usually the invention happens. This is one simple example. All of you are aware of or very fond of eating ice creams, and you know variety of ice creams, okay, which are used in a different forms. So how did this idea of preparing the cone, ice cream cone came out? So we are going to discuss that in the beginning of the class. Just to make you aware, all these are the some of the outcomes of research. Okay? Right? So this is very simple example. So when we take up in the class, I'm going to brief you about this. Right? Similarly, how to identify a problem. All of you want to do research, and in your day-to-day life, you will be doing it, but you don't know or you don't name it as research. Okay? So you're going to identify some problems in and around your life. Okay. So this is one more example which I just want to quote in the beginning to make you understand how again the new inventions happen or new discoveries happen. Okay. So one of the person or an individual, he started observing the people who are riding two wheelers. Okay. Most of the middle class families, they use two wheelers. Okay. They cannot afford for a four wheeler. Okay. So what usually happens, father will be driving the scooter, so he will be making his kids sitting in one in front of him and one more in the hands of his wife, your mother. Okay, it will be too risky driving the two-wheeler like this. But still, since they cannot afford for a four-wheeler, where it can accommodate all the four comfortably, okay, So, one of the individuals who was observing this came out with an idea and discovered or came out with one of the product which is truly meant for middle class people. I hope you can guess who is that and what is the product. Okay, so this is the product, the nano car, based on the observation and the concern for the middle class category who cannot afford to buy luxury cars. Okay, so this was one of the outcomes. We'll discuss in briefly about this. So I just want to tell you what is the outcome of that observation. Okay, after years and years of doing research, they could come out with this small car called as Nano. Okay? Nano, and which is with reasonable price, which middle class family can afford, and what is the value that they are getting out of this small car. Even everybody, even in a middle class family, also they can afford and can purchase a car and have the luxury of traveling in the car. So this is what I just wanted to make you understand that out of your interest, you have identified the problem, and for that problem, takes lot of efforts, do some inquiries, investigations, and finally you will be out with some output or outcome. And if that outcome is of use for any of the people or an individual or an organization, truly your research is work. Okay. Then there are various areas in which you can apply research. Okay. So in the organization, since we are discussing about business research, majority of the research applications are in the field of marketing. Okay, it's there in every field, but marketing also majority of the applications. So might be the applications are in the form of strategic applications or tactical applications. Okay, in strategies, we are going to discuss about demand forecasting, sales forecasting, segmentation studies, and how to identify target markets and positioning strategies. Okay, hopefully you have learned all these strategies in marketing management in first semester. So just we'll brief it in the class also. Then coming to the tactical, where it deals with product testing, pricing strategies, promotional research, logistics, distribution, and advertising research. So these are the various areas in which you can apply research, just to make you understand where and all you can apply the research. Okay, few examples of these things we're going to discuss in detail in the class. Next, let us now define what is research. Okay, so in generally, what do you say? Research is just an investigation, but you simply cannot tell it as an investigation. It is a formal, structured, systematic application of scientific methods to the study of problems. So as you all know, you start with the problem. The very intention of carrying out the research is to find a solution. Okay. How do you do? Simply investigating or doing an inquiry, asking questions doesn't mean that you are doing a research. Okay. It has to be very formal, very technical, structured. Okay. As in when we move on to other units, you'll understand what do you mean by the structure. Systematic. When you're doing out your research, there are various steps. So when we are discussing about research process, you will get to know what are the various steps in research process. So you have to follow that steps properly and apply scientific method. It is not maybe because of your gut feeling or you feel like I can do this, it is easy to do, nothing like that. You have to use some scientific methods to study the problem and analyze the problem so that you will get the solution to the problem. Okay, when you are doing this to solve a business problem, then this research is going to be called as business research. Okay, this is a famous definition given by Gay Nelson Erasing in 2009. Then just to introduce you about the subject. So previously we discussed the various outcomes of identifying the problem and finding the solution to us. So simply when somebody says what is research, you can just split the word re and search. So research, searching for the knowledge again and again. Okay. So what is the main intention of doing this research? Why you have to do research? Because you have a problem, you need a solution. So to solve the solution, you need a clear scientific way of solving it. Okay, so then you have to go for doing the research. Then there are many situations in the business or in your day-to-day life where you need to apply something or find a solution to it. Okay, so when you carry out a research work, it is definitely going to help you in taking the right decision. Okay, so when you're doing the research, for example, if one solution doesn't fit in, what are the other ways, what are the other strategies you can fit in? To find that also you can do a research. And there are some concepts and theories or models which nowadays, till now also you are studying. Okay, if you want to come out with your own concept, a new concept, a method, okay, then you can go for doing the research, right? And for example, in your company, say for example, for your product, the demand is falling. Okay, you are observing the demand for your product in the market is fluctuating, it is falling. So you want to know what are the reasons why it is falling, why your competitors are doing good in the market. Okay, then you can take up a research and find out what is happening in the market. Then, why business fluctuation takes place once in 3 years? Okay, based on your previous data, you have done an analysis and you've got to know like every 3 years there is a fluctuation in my business. So, what might be the reason? So, what should I do? So, to find the answer for all these things, you need to take a detailed investigation. That is what we call it as research. Okay, then to help making decision. Okay, so that is regarding finding and identifying the problem. Okay, and next is to make a right decision. Okay, so say for example you are giving an advertisement about your project, about your product. Okay, and the advertisement is for huge cost to the organization. You have to now take a decision based on your sales whether I have to continue with the same advertising or I have to go with some other, or do I have this sufficient budget to maintain this particular advertisement, or shall I make a move and change it? Okay, so it will help you to take a right decision. Find alternate strategies. Okay, when you introduce a product or launch a product in the market, okay, or otherwise you found that your product is not doing good in the market. So which strategy to be followed? There are various strategies. Okay, you have studied pull strategy, push strategy. These are strategies used to promote the product. So which strategy you can use when you have the alternatives, you can give a trial. Then to develop new concepts. So you every time you speak of this is in trend, okay, in the market now. So how do you come across that? Some research is going on, and some new concepts are arriving. Okay, maybe like customer relationship management, horizontal marketing. These are very new concepts. You can develop your own concept or study the trending topics. Okay, right. So now we move on to understanding the meaning of research. So already we have defined it. So once again, we just rewind and say what do you mean by research. So research is nothing but it's an art of scientific investigation. So it is a systematic. How do you do a research? Starting from identifying the problem, you have a systematic way of designing your research, then collecting the data, and once you've collected the data you have to analyze it using some scientific tools and then prepare a detailed report of your findings, and based on these findings you can give some suggestions to the problems which you have identified. That is why I told you research it is a systematic process. Okay? Why it is systematic? Because initially you start with identifying a problem and then you start designing your research. Okay, how do I have to proceed with my research? Then how do I collect my data? Once you've collected, as I told you, you have many of the scientific methods which you can use to analyze your data, and then a detailed report should be presented which contains the findings and solution to the problem. Okay, so this is also very scientific method because as I told you, you try to use many of the scientific tools here. So as we move towards the next unit, you're going to understand what are those methods. So what are the objectives of research? Okay. So broadly or mainly, there are four objectives of conducting a research. The first one is you want to gain some insights. some familiarity with a particular phenomena which you are interested in. Okay, you want to explore. So that is one objective. Exploring might be one of the objectives. Secondly, you want to describe some of the characteristics of an individual or a group or a situation. Okay, simply you want to describe what is existing because you want to predict the future or you want to just understand what is the trend moving on. So describing is one of the objectives, or sometimes you want to find out there is a phenomena with which frequency it is occurring. So you want to diagnose the frequency. That might be one of the objectives. Or sometimes you want to find out the effect and cause and effect relationship between the variables. You would have identified the variables. So for those variables, what is the relationship? Okay, what is the cause and what is the effect? You try to experiment with that. So this might be one of the objectives. So we are going to detailedly discuss later. Then requirement or necessity of research already I have discussed. So what is the requirement? One is you want to identify the right problem and you want to identify the solution for the identified problem. Second one is you want to find out the alternate strategies. Next, you want to take the right decision. With what help you will take, you do a research, conduct a research based on the findings, you take a right decision. And if you want to come out with the new concepts, okay, study the old concepts and you want to come up with your own concepts, then you can go for doing the research. So as I told you, when you take up a research, it is not only one type of research. There are various types of research. Okay, so you can take one research and complete it off, or while in the process, during the process, you can have a combination of two or three types of research. Okay, so as per your syllabus, we are going to study these types of research. One is exploratory research, descriptive research, action research, historical research, causal research, conceptual research, applied research, pure research, or it is also called as fundamental research or basic research. So these are the various types of research which as per your syllabus you are going to study and differentiate. This is very, very important. Why? Because if you don't understand which type of research you are going to carry out or you are doing, further steps in the research process would be difficult because for each type of research, you have a definite scientific method of collecting the data, identifying the sample, doing the analysis. It all varies upon the type of research. Okay. Again, this you're going to study in the second unit. So in first unit, you're going to just differentiate and understand the difference between various types of research. Okay. So first we'll take up exploratory research. So as I told you, this provides you some insights, okay, about an issue. Suppose you are interested in a particular domain or a situation or an issue. You don't have much knowledge about it. You want to gain more and more information about the topic. So you take up an exploratory research to understand the topic. Okay. So this exploratory research basically it relies on only the secondary data. Okay, you all know what is secondary and primary data. Secondary data is the data which is already existing. Okay, some research has already happened in that issue or concept. Now the data is easily available for you in the form of literature. Okay, so you're going to do a literature survey and find out more and more information about that particular topic. Okay. Suppose you want to know more about the consumers, employees, management, competitors. Okay. So there are various ways to collect the information. So one of the ways is exploring. How do you explore? You have to read more and more literature. Okay. So that is what I meant here, literature review, right? So you through internet in online, if you search, you will get n number of literature related to an issue, which you have to download, read, understand, and try to design your own research. So this is how this exploratory research is going to further help you in your research process. Okay. Then move on to descriptive research. So as the name itself is descriptive, it only says describing, okay, describing the data or characteristics. You are interested in studying a particular particular population which you have identified, okay, or a particular issue. Okay. So now you want to describe the characteristics to understand how the market is moving, how it is done. Okay. So this type of descriptive research answers the questions like who, what, where, when, and how. Okay, but it doesn't answer the question like why and how why it has happened. So that you have to do an experiment and find out the answer, right? So this research only describes the characteristics of the respondent whom you have identified for your study, okay, and sometimes even the demographic characteristics of the consumer. You want to prepare the database of in a particular area, geographical area, you can go for descriptive research. Okay. For example, you want to study the degree of viewing a TV channel. Okay. With respect to what? There are various parameters which you have identified. How did you identify these parameters? Through doing an exploratory research. Okay, when you have explored, you got to know viewing TV channels. There are different patterns. Okay, you got to know different age group people will watch different kind of TV channels. Okay, and the people with different income level they watch different kind of TV channels. So there are differences. So these variables you have already identified through exploring, doing an exploratory research. Now you finalize these variables for your descriptive study, and based on that you start collecting the data. Okay? You describe with this age group of people watch this kind of TV channels and what time they spend on watching these channels. Okay, so this is only describing status, only the status quo is described. Okay. Further moving on to applied research. Okay. So applied research is the research, as I told you, you are doing the research because there is a problem. You have to find out a solution for this problem. Okay. So there is a real life problem which needs an solution. Okay. So you have an intention to apply the solution and solve the problem. Then this research becomes a applied research. Yeah, right. So this applied research has an intention to practically apply the solutions which you have found out through your research, right? So this is applied research, right? Pure or fundamental, or it is also called as basic research. Okay. Here, this type of research is undertaken only for the sake of gaining the knowledge. Here, you don't have any intention to apply the solution which you have got through your research. Okay. So it doesn't. So fundamental research is not directly involved with any of the practical problems. But whereas in applied research, you have a real life problem and you have to solve that. So it deals with the practical problem. But pure research doesn't deal with any of the practical problems, and you don't have any intention to solve the problem also. You are taking up this basic research only to gain the knowledge about a particular subject. Okay. For example, theory of relativity. You just want to know what is theory of relativity, where it is used, how it can be used, what are its applications. Okay. Just for gaining knowledge. You need not have any intention to practice it anywhere or apply it anywhere. Coming to conceptual research. Okay. This generally is used by philosophers. Okay. So this research is related to some abstract idea or theory, and researcher will collect the data to prove or disprove a hypothesis. Okay, various ideologies which you are going to study. This deals only with the conceptual part. Okay, right. Next, causal research. This is causal research, which is also called as experimental research. Okay. So, if you want to find out the interrelationship between the variables, you know you have already identified the variables. So, where do you identify the variables? Through exploratory research. Okay. Now, you want to find out what is the relationship between these two variables. So, you want to do a causal research. Okay. So, it says why it is happening so. Okay, right? So you want to experiment. So when you're experimenting, you need at least minimum two variables because you want to identify what is cause and what is effect. Okay, so you need two variables. Those two variables are independent variable and dependent variable, which we are going to discuss it later in hypothesis uh, topic. Okay, supposing a clothing company which is selling the blue denim jeans, okay, wants to take up a causal research because it wants to measure the impact of if at all the company changes the product design from blue color to some other color, maybe white for example. The company boss wants to know how will be the impact on the sales of the product, what would be the reaction of the consumers. So you can take up a causal research and find out the answer for it. Okay. Next, historical research. As the name itself says, historical. It deals with the history, that is the past. You know what is history? Past. Okay. So this research is a study of past records. Okay. You want to understand the past records. Study the past records and find out the future trends. Okay. So there is no direct observation. It's all based on the past data. Okay, so this research it has to depend only on the conclusions or the inferences which is drawn in the past by some other people. Okay, so main objective is to study the past and predict the future based on the past. But okay, there are few shortcomings of this research also. One is you cannot rely on the data past records and might not be the information what you are getting is adequate to take a decision or to answer a question. Okay, so reliability is a question, accuracy of measurement is also a question, and verification of records is not possible because it is already done with. Okay, for example, in the share market, if an investor wants to invest or purchase a share of a particular company, okay, he or she can just study the past records of that company's share prices, and based on that, they can take a decision, make a right decision whether to invest or not. Okay, so this is about historical research. And the last one is action research. Okay, action and applied looks same. Okay, so action research also here research is undertaken by direct action. There is a practical problem, you want to have a solution to solve that problem, but only thing is here also you have an intention to apply, but only difference is action research you want to solve immediately. There is a problem, you have to immediately get a solution to solve that problem. You cannot wait until for a long time. Okay, so this is called action research. So these are the various types of research which we are going to discuss or study in first unit. Okay, I hope I'm clear with these things. Let me just brief you once again. So these are the references which I have used to get the content for first unit. So let me once again. So in this first week, we are going to study the business research, the meaning, objectives of research, requirements for conducting research, and what are the different types of research. Okay, the difference between each type of research. Okay, hopefully you are able to get a gist of all these topics. Okay, so in detail we are going to discuss in